Second down and 8. Jones in the game in the backfield. The defender, he'll take this one on a pass from May, and he's getting to the edge, and he's got a first down.
Just 5 days ago, New England Patriots cornerback Marcus Jones caught an 18-yard pass as a receiver to pick up a first down. New England has tried getting him going on both sides of the ball, but it just hasn't worked yet. We've seen attempts at players playing both ways in the NFL. We see a lot of big guys playing fullback on some snaps, but rarely do we see guys playing both wide receiver and cornerback. Deion Sanders is likely the most successful NFL player on both ends, bringing in 53 career interceptions and nearly 800 receiving yards. Funny enough, one of Deion Sanders' coaching products could take the crown as the best wide receiver and cornerback two-way player in NFL history. After watching his film, I'll say this: we have never seen a player like Travis Hunter. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of this Travis Hunter scouting report, let's look at some of his background. Before shining at the collegiate level, Hunter played high school ball at Collins Hill High School in Georgia, where he had 46 career receiving touchdowns and 19 career interceptions. He led the Eagles to their first state championship in school history. Hunter initially committed to Florida State before flipping to Jackson State, where he became the highest rated recruit in FCS history. In one season with the Tigers, Hunter played 87 offensive snaps and over 500 defensive snaps, registering 190 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns offensively, along with 2 picks and 8 pass breakups defensively. When head coach Deion Sanders departed the Jackson State program to become the head coach of Colorado, Hunter did not hesitate to follow. We saw his true two-way potential during his sophomore season, putting together 700 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns offensively, 3 interceptions, and 5 pass breakups defensively. His junior season was potentially the most anticipated season in college football this past year, and oh man, he did not disappoint. 1,152 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 4 interceptions, and 11 pass breakups. This season earned him the Biletnikoff Award, the Bednarik Award, and he controversially won the Heisman Trophy over Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. As said in the intro, we haven't seen a collegiate player like Travis Hunter, which means we haven't seen an NFL prospect just like Travis Hunter either. I'm splitting this scouting report up into a wide receiver section and a cornerback section, but before I get into that, there are things to discuss that can't really be categorized on either side of the ball. First off, there's the fact that he's a great two-way player that can fit into both sides. Sure, you got guys who can play 2 positions, 1 on each side, but nobody has done it like Travis Hunter. Nobody has had that much success as both a wide receiver and a cornerback in college. There's a question on how well that will translate to the NFL, but I would still see this as a positive. RG3, a former Heisman winner, described it this way.
It would be like taking a pastry chef who is a master at beignets. Okay, it's a French donut, a New Orleans delicacy. And I'm now going to go tell him, you can no longer make beignets. You can only make cakes.
It'll stifle him.
Part of being a two-way player at his level involves playing 120 snaps a game. That requires elite levels of conditioning and athleticism to perform at consistent levels for 120 snaps. The 2024 Baylor game is a massive example. He played 145 snaps, and on the very last one, he forced the game-winning fumble to elevate Colorado to their 3rd win of the season. One general point that applies both ways involves his frame. Sure, he's got very good arm length that allows him to have a nice catch radius on offense and helps fund his great ball skills on defense, but he's overall a skinny player who might need to put on some mass to keep up with the physicality of the NFL. Well, that's about all I have generally, so let's take a look at him both offensively and defensively. Let's begin with wide receiver, where Hunter looked very good this season. 1,152 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns in the air, which is double the combined totals from his first 2 years. If he wanted to keep his first round hype, this is exactly what he needed to do. Let's break down the more important parts of being a wide receiver. As a route runner, I think Hunter has more unrevealed potential that a legitimate NFL coaching staff can already help tap into. That's not to discredit what he has already done as a route runner, which is already pretty dang good. He showed most success in the short and medium game, where he's very good at stopping and going whenever he pleases. As a deep route runner, I think Hunter actually shows weaknesses here. He's a fast athlete, don't get me wrong, but too often he's getting caught up on vertical routes and he's not getting any separation. I also rarely saw any creativity in his deep routes outside of off-script plays where he has to make the play himself. This transitions into my next concern for Hunter. His route tree could use some expansion all around the field, as he just runs a ton of basic routes that sometimes work and sometimes don't. Most of that is on Colorado's offensive system and play calling, but that will come across as a negative for the league anyways. He needs to prove that he can run more multi-layered routes in order to prove me wrong and prove this scouting report wrong. Back on the positive end of things, Hunter's spatial awareness and release package are both very good. Both of them come as a result of playing DB, as understanding different instincts, zone packages, and more can help Hunter thrive as a receiver in these situations. His spatial awareness is among some of the best that I've watched in a wide receiver prospect, and his release package is slightly inconsistent, but still great at its best. One more thing about route running. He does tend to get knocked off his routes too often. His play strength is shockingly mediocre in the pass game, and that might just be his worst trait as a receiver. Now, it's not the most important thing ever, and that can be improved with coaching. Now we gotta talk about the catch point capabilities of Hunter, which in my eyes is easily the best section of his game as a receiver. There is literally nothing bad that I can say about how he plays at catch point. He's just that good. You can see this right away with his hands. He has 4 career drops on 210 career targets, a career drop rate of only 2.4%. Even with 3 of these 4 drops coming in 2024, he only dropped 3.2% of his 2024 targets. Unbelievable hands that just don't show on a lack of concentration drops, but also show on some ridiculous catches that he's made in game. I wish I had the 2024 North Dakota State game on all 22 film, because that last sentence, this game is an epitome of that. As I mentioned earlier, Hunter's arm length allows for him to have a pretty wide catch radius when thrown to, but that's only part of it. His elite body control and ball concentration combine to make some of these catches phenomenal. One thing that I like to ask myself is that after he makes a ridiculous catch, I say, this guy plays cornerback too? It's almost unbelievable. This also helps boost his catch in traffic rating, which I nearly gave an A+, but I gave it to his hands instead. Let me just say this. He has the upside to be a F it, he's down there somewhere type of receiver. I'm going to split up receiver athleticism and cornerback athleticism for the sake of them having different weights for my grades. When it comes to receiver, I tend to prioritize agility and deep speed more than anything else, and Hunter displays both of those at high levels. He's extremely twitchy as both a route runner and an open field threat, which provides him with the upside to be used in many different ways. I think he was underutilized as a screen receiver this year, and he only saw 19 of his 115 targets this season from behind the line of scrimmage. They threw it to him most in the short middle of the field, and even a lot of those were off-script plays where he had to play make his way to the ball. NFL teams should use his open field upside more. Nonetheless, he is still a threat in the open field. His twitchiness allows for him to break tackles with his athleticism, and he does not need to rely on his mediocre play strength to break those tackles. As for deep speed, I did mention before that he's an inconsistent vertical threat and can struggle to create separation on those plays. But I like to dock those points in deep route running. He's still a fast receiver nonetheless who likely runs under a 4.4, and that deep speed can be more on showcase when a NFL team expands his route tree like they should. I've already touched on explosiveness, which is another great athletic trait of his. He shows it more on the defensive side of the ball or when off script on offense, but he's still able to explode well out of his breaks. Finally, to touch on vitals just really quick, here's what he received. Hunter's measurables as a receiver fall below average, but nothing too detrimental. Him being 6'1" is a positive, but having that skinny frame could spark issues in the future. His medicals are extremely impressive, as while he has missed time due to injury, him consistently being able to play 120 plus snaps without being injured too much is extremely impressive. Alignment versatility is super hard to analyze, as while he's played both inside and outside, he's done them in different seasons. During his Heisman season this year, he only saw 5.7% of his receiving snaps in the slot. In 2023, he saw 65% of his snaps in the slot. Nonetheless, having experience both inside and out is a plus. Finally, his production as a receiver wasn't spectacular up until his junior year, but it's still well above average and deserves its props. Alright, I've evaluated him as a wide receiver. Now let's evaluate him as a corner. Let's begin with his coverage abilities, which are far and wide the most important trait of a cornerback. Hunter has up and down sub-traits in this section, but some of those positive traits are some of the best in his entire game. First off, when a ball is thrown his way, his ball skills are immaculate. Hunter is a true ball hawk who reads the quarterback's eyes at very good levels and can jump passing lanes out of off-man or zone, or outmuscle the receiver to deflect a pass in press or jump ball coverage. There is a reason he has 9 career picks and 24 career pass breakups. Part of that does come from his wide receiver background, obviously, but the fact that he is able to translate it to the cornerback position is something that nearly every dual threat player at these two positions failed to do in the NFL, or vice versa, where good ball hawking skills at corner didn't translate to wideout. The question is if this will stay for Hunter in the NFL. Another huge positive part of his coverage skill set comes in press coverage. He's much more physical as a corner than he is as a receiver, and that's clear out of press. Again, having that wide receiver background helps him understand how to guard different types of release packages, but the idea of having a physical skill set as well will help that great press coverage translate to the next level. When it comes to other forms of coverage, Hunter also thrives in zone. He's able to take on different looks at high levels, and even sometimes take on a large zone that requires great instincts and anticipation. At his best, both of those are very good. I noted in my final scouting report that Hunter has potential safety versatility that we just haven't really seen yet. Off-man coverage is sort of a weakness for Hunter, mainly because of his inconsistencies. First off, he leaves too much of a cushion in coverage at times, and that will allow easy catches or targets that could be prevented if he anticipated the pass better. That's his main inconsistency. His anticipation is great at its best, but awful at its worst. Mashing it all together, I just gave his anticipation an average grade. I won't touch too much on athleticism since it is semi-similar to wide receiver, but there are still those big differences as I mentioned earlier with those weighted grades. First off, his explosiveness is more important at the cornerback position as he can have the click and close instincts, but he may not have the explosiveness to execute. I want to see the explosiveness more, as I gave it an average grade because his anticipation is just inconsistent, and we can see more of that explosiveness if he becomes more consistent. The agility here is pretty much the same at the wide receiver position, except now he must use it to stay in stride with wide receivers. He uses that agility very well as a cornerback, and it's most noticeable when he's in press coverage. Covering those release packages can be challenging for some corners, but a combination of his play strength and his agility help him cover them so well. And as for deep speed, it's seen more when he's at corner than when he's at wide receiver. He does a fantastic job covering fast receivers and staying stride for stride on vertical routes. Balls rarely get thrown his way when he's covering the vertical, and teams will likely stray away from sending their deep receiver to Hunter. Even in something as simple as run support, his pursuit capabilities showcase that very nice deep speed. Speaking of run support, this next section is more miscellaneous and I'll find a name for it soon, but all of these traits intertwine so it'll make enough sense. I've already mentioned that Hunter shows his play strength much more at the cornerback position, but I haven't really said that this play strength is really damn good. It shows in press coverage, it shows in his ball skills, it shows in his run support, it really just shows everywhere. It isn't perfect by any means, but it's still very good. Then transitioning into the run support, which is more below average but not by much. He's shown very good flashes as a run defender and really as a defender in the flats, but his tackling technique is a little awkward and can lead to too many missed tackles at the next level. He missed 13.5% of his tackles in 2024, including making a couple business decisions and not actually making the tackle. But the potential is there for him as a run defender. Finally, his instincts are overall very good. As a coverage defender, he reads the quarterback's eyes at good rates as mentioned before. As a run defender and as a short pass defender, he does a nice job sniffing out the short game and overall just understands the opposing offenses very well. And to wrap up the cornerback position, here's a look at Hunter's vitals. A lot of this was already previously mentioned, including that Hunter is a skinny athlete for the NFL. But this works more as a cornerback than it does as a receiver. Medicals stay the same. As I said, it's impressive that he can play 120 snaps a game and not have at least a decently long injury list. While Hunter fits best as an outside cornerback at the next level, he does a nice job covering the slot as well and might play some of that in the NFL. I would say his alignment versatility as a corner is just average though, and his production as a corner is very solid. Again, 9 picks and 24 pass breakups is very nice, and his allowed yardage and receptions aren't too shabby either. But if I look at him as only a corner and not as a dual threat player, his production as a corner is nothing ridiculously spectacular. At this point, everything has been evaluated. So let's take a look at every positive and negative that I have noted on my final scouting report. First off, here are the positives. And here are the negatives. So to bring everything together, I gave Travis Hunter an early second round grade as a wide receiver and an early second round grade as a cornerback. Now, this does not mean that he's an early second round talent. His ability to play both wide receiver and cornerback at an early second round talent is enough to make him a first round talent as an NFL prospect. So, to wrap it all up, my final grade for Travis Hunter is an A, or a first round grade. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.